Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. Here we are, in case you haven't seen it, Fusion Strike booster boxes rolling over $1,000. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the future of this, how we got here, and what we can learn about TCGs and how the markets around these products work based on the history of Fusion Strike and what we can reasonably think about it going forward into the future. The important thing, though, is that it's $1,000. Now, this released November 21st of 2021, which was right in the time period when the Pokemon Company absolutely annihilated the Pokemon market. Celebrations had come out in September or October, and they had held back a lot of reprints. It was the kind of late COVID era, and so the reprint sizes were astronomical. And they held back a lot of reprints in that August, September, October timeframe in order to let Pokemon celebrations percolate in the market, to let people have their time with that. And then afterwards, getting into October of 2021, Pokemon USA released all the reprints, six expansions worth of reprints, crushed the market. And into that, Fusion Strike released, came into the market for the very first time, November 21st, 2021. And man, it was a wild time. I looked back on my purchase records and I began buying Fusion Strike boxes at $88.57 delivered to my house in early 2022. That's where I began buying them. And now at $1,000 today, that means that if you came along with me and Final Trade in that time period and you were buying those boxes when I was buying them and when I was putting them on the Friday seal deals, you, like me, are up 11x at this point on those boxes. A mere, golly, 3 years later, 3.5 years later. Okay, nearly 4 years. Oh no, nearly 4 years to be up 11x. And so, since it came out in November of 21, it would have nominally gone out of print approximately November of 23. Pokemon Company is a little more squishy on when they will do the reprints because it's not as dependent on the standard rotation cycle the way Magic standard expansions are. And instead, they are a little more driven by the collectors, obviously. And so they will go ahead and reprint expansions that have rotated out of standard if the market says that they can bear it. Now, in 2022, Fusion Strike was considered the worst thing ever. It was considered so bad. All of the herpes on Reddit were screeching for people not to buy it, that it was garbage, that it'll never be worth anything. It was printed to oblivion and it will never dry up in the market. There's no hope for it. Don't waste your money. And now here we are 4 years later and it's up 11x. But, how do we get there? How do we get in between something being so both overprinted and under desired at one point in its life, and then now 4 years later it's crossing $1,000 a box? How do you make that turn in a product's reputation, in its history and its future? How do you get there? Well, you know, in 2022, our friend Mason from Cardinal Gaming, I love Mason. I love how candid he is about things. He was talking in 2022, a video he made on his channel about how he had to take this entire poison pill package from his distributor, and in order to get several boxes of Brilliant Stars and Evolving Skies and Chilling Rain and the things that he wanted more of at the time, he was going to have to take many cases of Fusion Strike. Imagine if you could be offered many cases of Fusion Strike today. How excited most people would be to buy it, even still at $1,000 today. But there are people out there who today, even as recently as this week on YouTube, have assured us that these kind of prices for Pokemon can't do this. It was never meant to be like this. Markets don't work this way. And it won't hold up, and that the future of all these Sword and Shield era products is just awful. We've been assured by some people who claim to be experts that, well, you know, collectibles don't work like this. that you can't go from the most hated product ever shipped to your door at $88.57 in early 2022 to $1,000 per box in late 2025. We've been assured it can't happen. And these same people have also assured us that there are so many boxes of this in the closets around the world that everybody is hoarding boxes of Fusion Strike, of the rest of the Sword and Shield era product, and of all of the Scarlet and Violet era product, that in the future we will not possibly see the kinds of returns that we here at Final Trade have objectively measured from the data going back 12 years now. We've been told that it cannot happen and that it will not happen in the future. And the market can answer some questions about these kind of things with a little bit of certainty. So, the market will tell you some things. The market will tell you some things with different levels of certainty depending on when you ask it. And so, one thing that we can ask the market is, what do you think a Fusion Strike box is worth? And well, the market will tell us today a Fusion Strike box is worth $1,000. And what can we infer from that? We can infer that even if there are just warehouses packed full of nothing but pallet upon pallet of Fusion Strike booster boxes stacked to the sky, it's not enough. It's not enough, and not enough of them are coming out to crush the market. Because here we are, a mere 4 years post release, not even 4 years, 3 months short of 4 years post release of Fusion Strike, 21 months after it nominally went out of print. And we have gone 11x on this product. And so, to the extent that everybody is apparently hoarding Pokemon, I don't believe it at all. But some people who claim to be experts assure us positively, with no uncertainty, that everyone is hoarding Pokemon and that it's going to crush the prices. To the extent that that could be true, it's not working so far. We've got Evolving Skies at $2,500 a box. I'll tell you guys, if you came along with me in Final Trade in 2021 and 2022, your basis cost, like mine, is about 110 bucks. And we've got Fusion Strike crossing 1,000. We've got Lost Origins closing in on 1,000. We've got Brilliant Stars at around 500. We've got Chilling Rain at around 500. It's looking pretty good. And it's looking like, well, however many closets full of this product, it's not enough. It's not enough closets, it's not enough hoarders, and it's not enough product to keep these prices down because they are performing astronomically. And, you would think that if there were just all these closets full of it all over the place, we would see more boxes coming out to crush this market. We wouldn't continue to see incredible outperformance by Sword and Shield era booster boxes. We wouldn't see incredible outperformance compared to Magic, compared to the S&P 500, compared to so many other things. If we really thought that all of that product was sitting out there ready to come to market and crush it, you'd think somebody would be greedy enough to start trickling their boxes out, that enough people in potentially financial times like this would say, I'm ready to trade in some of those boxes for cash to lock in some of those profits and to walk away from part of that investment. And yet, here we are. Here we are, 21 months after Fusion Strike goes out of print and it's gone 11x. And so, if we want to try and listen to the market, try and hear what the market is trying to tell us, what we might infer, and again, because I do not speak in certainties, I speak in probabilities, I speak in potential futures and possible outcomes, because I'm experienced enough in markets to know that you cannot be certain. I would say, as I listen to the market and I look at Fusion Strike and Evolving Skies and Chilling Rain and Brilliant Stars and Lost Origins, I would say that whatever there is in closets, and certainly there are a lot of boxes in closets, it's not nearly enough. It's not nearly enough for people who naturally would like to be greedy to be compelled enough to bring them out and crush the prices, to trade them in, to put any type of break on the price ascension of Sword and Shield era boxes. So yes, there are boxes in closets, there are hoarders, there are many, many closets with many, many boxes, but not nearly as many as some people are certain are out there. And the market is telling us that. The market is telling us that however many boxes of evolving skies are out there, well, it's not enough to bring the price down. It's not enough to put any type of damper or brake on the price ascension. And the train just keeps going along. And I would not be, let me say it this way. I would be shocked if Evolving Skies boxes ever saw $2,000 again. When they're at 25, 2,600 today, I'd be shocked if they dropped 30% and we saw $2,000 again. I would be very, very surprised by that. I do not think there are enough boxes out there, and I do not think there is ever going to be some concerted effort by all these hoarders to dump all the boxes at once and crush the prices. And so, in the future, what I think is most likely is the demand for Pokemon will continue to slowly increase year after year after year. And maybe the demand for Sword and Shield boxes will go down as the price continues to go up. But the supply of Sword and Shield boxes, it only goes down every day. And even as a few boxes come out of closets and go onto the market on any given day, the overall supply available, the float, the amount that's available for trading in the market still goes down over time. And that will only continue. And I expect on the long timeline to see a continued increasing mismatch between supply and demand, and that the demand will continue to outstrip the supply of Sword and Shield era boxes more and more year after year after year into the future, and thus the demand curve says that the prices will continue to rise. Because the market is telling us right now that whatever there is in closets, whoever these hoarders are that have them, they are not willing enough to dump enough of the boxes on the market to meaningfully impact prices. And so when you find someone who claims to be an expert and says that with certainty they know that there are too many boxes out there are too many hoarders, there are too many closets, too full, and that one day the boxes will come out, you just wait, just hold your breath, it's coming, and that the prices will get crushed and that the returns in the future will be very bad, will be mediocre, will not even reach the returns of the S&P 500. Well, the certainty is really the problem. You know, when you've been doing things like this, when you've been investing in markets, and when you've actually been successful and you can show the receipts of your success over decades, for long enough, you learn don't speak in certainties. And so some of these people who have dug a hole for themselves over many years, hundreds and hundreds of videos speaking with certainty about how markets weren't meant to be like this, they can't go on this way, collectibles don't work like this, and Pokemon will freighter into a disaster one day. Well, if they've been wrong for this long, what makes you think one day they will suddenly become right? I always hedge my language because I don't know what the future has. And I always analyze and apply models. I try to collect data. I try to bring receipts. Let me correct that. I do bring receipts. And I show that, well, this is the best that we can expect. This is what we might predict for the future amongst a spectrum of possible outcomes, because I don't know what the future holds for certain. What I can say is that based on everything we know about the past, based on everything we've measured objectively from historical data, based on what we know about the Sword and Shield era, based on what we have objectively observed since Sword and Shield has gone out of print, and based objectively on what the market is telling us today, I am reasonably assured Sword and Shield era boxes will continue to outperform into the future. Let me know what you think, guys. Thanks to everyone who makes this content possible, especially my very generous supporters on Patreon. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join me on Final Trade. Buy a hat.